I'm Sharon, and welcome to the guest house. Today, I want to try to figure out how to use my propane oven in my RV. If you have an RV and you have an oven, it's probably propane. One of the things that I'd like to try to figure out is how to regulate the temperature in the oven so that it's the temperature that I need it to be. If you're going to make baked goods, it's going to make a huge difference. You want the temperature to be fairly regular, and you want to also make sure that you're cooking evenly from front to back and from side to side. I lit the oven, and the oven is now preheating. I let it go for 10 minutes, and then I turned the flame down just a touch because it was a little warm, and I've let it go another 5 minutes. And the temperature is a little better, so it went all the way up to 400 pretty quickly, and now it's down just over maybe 380, so it's at about 380. My first test is going to be corn muffins. Now, the reason that I want to try corn muffins first is because I have not cooked a muffin or bread type baked good in this oven yet. I'd like to see how that works out, and also because, well, I happen to have the corn muffins ready to go. I'm making mini muffins, so I have 2 trays of mini muffins. I'm going to start with 1 tray, and I'm going to put it in the oven for 5 minutes, turn it, let it go for another couple of minutes, and then just take a peek and check and make sure that I think that they're probably, cooked, ready to go. If something goes wrong with the first batch, then I'll think about, what might have gone wrong, and I'll try to correct it with the second batch to see if I can get the second batch to work out better than the first. Okay, so I'm ready to put my first batch of muffins in the oven. Because this is a propane oven, we're not messing around. This is my oven mitt. I bought these for my husband to use when he was grilling, and I stole one of them because I thought, well, why not? Okay, so now notice, it says 350, but that's because I took it out for a second, and you'll notice I moved it up to the front. So now I'm going to close the oven door. I'm going to set my timer on my watch for 5 minutes. We're good. So they look really good. They're puffed up nicely, and they're not they don't look like they're cooking unevenly. Those look pretty good. They're done. Let's put these ones in. I like to leave the oven thermometer in there, and let's set it for 5 minutes. Put in the second batch and set my timer for 5 minutes. You can't see, it's upside down. Sorry. And then I'm going to do the 180, turn it around 180 degrees. But let's take a look at the ones I just pulled out of the oven. I think they look really good. This is them. They look pretty nice. They're definitely cooked, right? Look at that. Look at how beautiful they are. They're really soft, really, really lovely. So I think my first test with the corn muffins worked out really well. So now that I have the second batch in the oven, very excited for this. I think that we know now. Mini corn muffins, try to keep the temperature at around 350. Try to keep the mini muffin tray as close to the middle of that rack as possible, and do 5 minutes, and then rotate the pan 180 degrees, so front to back, and go another 5 minutes, and you're done. The thing that you should not be looking for, you should not be looking for browning on the top of your corn muffins. You may see a little split on the top of your corn muffins. Try not to let them go so far that they really split hard, because at that point you're probably going to know that they're overcooked. But you'll notice from when I pulled apart that corn muffin, it was nice and soft. It was just like a corn muffin should be, and when it first comes out of the oven. Now, when those sit a little bit, you'll be able to slice them open, drop a little pat of butter in between, squish them like a cupcake. Okay, so aren't we having the best time? So I put the thermometer back into the oven. Just to recap, the corn muffins are all finished. The 5 and 5 minute timing interval worked really well for the first batch. For the second batch, I think the oven cooled down just a little, and while I was switching out the first and the second batch. So I think what I would do the next time is I would take the first batch out, close the oven door, wait for a few minutes until the oven temperature comes back up, and then put the second batch in. And I think then it would have worked just fine. What I ended up doing with the second batch is that when I turned them around, ended up just leaving them in for a couple more minutes, and I think they're fine. But I think ideally we would like to come up with something where you're using the same timing every time, and you don't have to really keep checking. It's just a lot of work. The idea is to try to make this simpler, not more complicated. So our second test is going to be Quaker oatmeal cookies. So what I did was I made a batch of the oatmeal cookie dough recipe on the Quaker box. The only difference is I have my own little twist to this recipe, and I really do think that it makes a huge difference. The recipe calls for 3 cups of oats, just plain oats right out of the canister. What I do is I take 1 cup of that and I grind it in my Ninja until it's like an oat flour, very coarse oat flour. And then the other 2 cups, I just leave them as is. And I think that it makes for a really good cookie. It's still got the chew that you love from oats, but it's got a more oaty flavor. It makes them a little softer too. They're not as firm and crunchy, but they still have that same, satisfying oaty chew. Anyway, let's take a look at the cookies. Now what I did was I rolled them in balls, put them in the fridge, because that's what I always do with my cookies before I put them in the oven. And that way we can come up with a reasonable test. Now we're going to do the same thing with the cookie test that we did with the muffin test. I forgot what I did. And in that I have 2 batches. Now we're only going to cook 4 cookies at a time because this oven's really tiny, and so you got to use little pans, and I tend to make larger cookies. So let's take a look at those. Okay, so this is what we're looking at. So I have 2 small pans. I have 4 cookies on each pan. I separated the cookies so that they're not right, next to each other. And what I'm going to do is put 1 pin in at a time. Okay, so these cookies are very firm, right? Okay, so after the first 5 minutes of the cookies, I noticed they were still kind of like round. They sort of look like meatballs. So I decided to let them go another 3 minutes, and I just turned them around 180 degrees. So now we're going to see how they do. They did kind of soften up a little bit, but they kind of look like fried egg, where it's like lump in the middle. So this could mean that the way I normally would do it in my oven, in my kitchen, where I would have these nice round lumps of cookies and they slowly spread out in my oven. It may not work that way in this oven. So I'm going to let this batch go. The second batch, I'm going to press them down just a little bit just to start, just to see if maybe that makes a difference. And we'll see. So hang on. So we have another 30 seconds, and then I'm going to go ahead and flip the cookies 180. They've been in for almost 8 minutes. It'll be 8 minutes and just under 30 seconds. So the cookies turned out nicely. So you can look and see. They're really soft right now, but they're just very blonde on the bottom, which is fine because, and they're just a little toasty on the top. That's good. They're very, very hot. These ones still nice and cold from their fridge. I'm gonna keep them that way. I'm not gonna squish them like I was thinking I would, because these turned out really, really well. I think I figured out how to make sure that you can cook your food for your baked goods for the same amount of time each round, and that is just make sure that you bring the oven back up to temperature before you put the next batch in. So, here's my timer. Okay, so I flipped the cookies around and they look a little more done. This batch looks a little more done than the last batch did. So I set my timer for 3 minutes because I don't want it to go too long and for the cookies to be overdone. Nobody likes a really hard, crunchy, tough oatmeal cookie fresh from the oven. I do think, though, that I understand more about how the heat regulation works. I mean, it's a little hot box, basically. It's like somewhat insulated little hot box. And with the first test, with the corn muffins, I didn't wait at all in between batches. I took the first batch out, put the second batch in, and it took, maybe a solid minute to take out the oven thermometer, take out the first batch, put in the second batch, put in the oven thermometer, and then put it back, I mean, maybe it didn't take that long. But it took long enough that it dropped the temperature below 350, and it just barely came back all the way up to 350 by the time I had to rotate that second batch of corn muffins. And so it took a little longer to cook the second batch. But the first batch of cookies, I was 8 minutes on the first side, and then 5 minutes after I rotated it. Now remember, they were fresh out of the refrigerator. The second batch had been sitting on the counter for the entire time that the first batch was in the oven. So my expectation is they won't take as long to cook. So I have 30 seconds left on this timer. So I am going to take a peek at these cookies and see what they look like. It could be that the 8 minutes on the first side and then 3 minutes after I rotate is plenty because these started out just slightly warmer. It's all science, folks. So here's the second batch of cookies. And as I suspected, they look exactly like the first batch of cookies as they came out of the oven. Way better than any other cookies I've ever baked in this oven. Now, this is important to know. As I suspected, they did not take as long to cook. And I do believe it is because they were not as cold. The sheet pan was not cold from the refrigerator. The cookies were not as cold from the refrigerator. And so they took roughly 2 minutes less time to cook. So this is why I say it's really, really, really important that you pay attention to whatever you have cooking in the oven.
Hi, I'm Barry. I was brought out here to test a cookie.
Test the cookie that I just cooked in our RV.
Gosh, ooh, it's
oven.
still really, really hot.
Yeah.
That's really good. Oh, these are perfect. Just like in the oven.
So,
the real oven in the house.
Is this better or worse than the last oatmeal cookies I did in the... So what was wrong with...
We were really looking forward to cookies when we were out at Camp Henner's, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Looking forward to that late night munch. She made cookies. Never had burnt cookies before. But when you're hungry and you get your mind set on cookies, you're going to eat them.
So, not only were they like burnt in the back, but they were like half raw in the front.
Oh, yeah.
So.
These are really good.
Yeah. You like that? You like the combination? You like the mix-ins?
Oh, any cookie's a good cookie.
Did you know what I put in them?
White chocolate.
And?
Raisins.
No.
Walnuts.
No.
Oops.
Tart cherries.
I don't think I had a tart cherry yet. But right next to it.
Is a molten piece of white chocolate?
White chocolate. Now, see, that's a good combination.
I thought that would be a good combination because white chocolate is so sweet and tart cherries would kind of balance that out a little bit.
Let me try it. Yum.
Thanks for following along with us while we test out the RV oven. I had a great time.
Me too. I got to eat.
Yeah, you had a great time. You got to test the muffins and the cookies, which was fantastic. Hold on a second.
Timer's going off?
Yeah, it was, but I reset it, so we're good. Please consider subscribing if you subscribe, it tells us that we're doing something right.
You care.
Please. You're doing something right. And look, this guy needs all of the support he can get. So give us a thumbs up. That also tells us that we're doing something right. If you have a comment, please leave it below.
Yes.
If you have tested your oven and you've had different results, let us know what they are. If you've had other successes, let us know.
Or failures.
Right. Let us know the worst thing that you cooked in your oven and what happened, and because I think that would be a lot of fun. We may read those in a video going forward, or maybe even post them to our Instagram and Facebook page, because that's always fun to share foibles. Anyway.
I can't even say foibles.
Yeah,
Thanks for being our guests.
thanks.
See you guys.
Bye. And I'm going to bring these lovely cookies in the house, and when my daughter comes home from her job as a lifeguard, she'll probably eat all of them. If her daddy doesn't get to them first. This is me watching the oven. It's very exciting. What a way to spend the day.
Hi, I'm the guinea pig. And this is the piglet. I'm the guinea pig, you're the piglet.
The baker.
That was a really good cookie.
So you're the tester.
I don't know, I just came out here to see what you're doing.
You're just wondering what I was doing in the trailer for so long.
I was thinking
You
about
wanted to
locking
know.
her in.
Well, first, you saw me mix a batch of cookie dough and walk away with it. And you saw me mix a batch of corn muffin mix and walk away with it.
She was so focused on the cookie dough that she walked out the door, and I'm in the family room. I heard water running. I'm like, I know she left, walked up to the sink, and sure enough, the water's running full blast.
So I took the mixing bowl off the mixer, put it in the sink, and I turned water on to put water in it because I didn't want the batter to dry up on the. And I walked away into the trailer, and Barry comes into the trailer and says, "Did you leave the water on in the sink on purpose?" No, I did not. I was very focused on trying to get this test done. Anyway.
All right, I gotta go do something else. See ya.